The wilds of Glen Ghoinean, Duncan McNab.
Hello, Glen Ghoinean. There's no particular reason why any of you should know where Glen Ghoinean is. It's one of the most remote glens in Highland Perthshire. There's no road through it or to it, and there's no human habitation there. But in 1926, in the summer of 1926, a wooden hut was erected at the top of the glen, and a rabbit trapper moved out in the September, and he spent the next 6 months trapping rabbits in the hills around Glen Ghoinean, living in this wooden shed. And of course that was through the winter months, no insulation, and that in itself is not that remarkable, but the fact that from the minute he got there until the end of February, he never saw a living soul, he never spoke to anybody. So he had 6 months of complete solitude. And I think most of us here would crack up after maybe 6 weeks without speaking to anybody, and in some cases probably 6 days or 6 hours. But he managed half a year living on his own. But that's not the remarkable bit. It's the fact that he was a 13-year-old boy, and he spent that whole time fending for himself, living off the land, and he came out of it unscathed. And I should mention that the rabbit trapper was my dad. So it's a true story. He was just a child, only 13 years, when he set out on his way to the wilds of Glen Ghoinean on that warm September day. He was leaving behind his family, leaving behind his home, for the wilds of Glen Ghoinean, where herds of red deer roam. He arrived with a sack of barley and oats for making burrows, 250 rabbit snares and a change of working clothes, and a sack of coal to fuel the stove in his tiny wooden shack. And 6 months would come and go before he would walk back down the track from the wilds of Glen Ghoinean, where herds of red deer roam, and the rabbit trapping laddie, he lived there all alone. He had a 6-month trapping contract in Glen Ghoinean's wild hills, through the mellow months of autumn, and then through winter's bitter chills. And in solitude he would check his snares. So in solitude, the trapper lad, he would check his lines of snares. No one to share his thoughts with, his worries or his cares. Not in the wilds of Glen Ghoinean, where herds of red deer roam. The rabbit trapping laddie, he lived there all alone. He dined on freshly guddled trout, brose and rabbit stew. He slept upon a hard camp bed, and his comforts they were few. And he'd gather fuel from a nearby wood, he drew his water from the burn. But all the while the young lad dreamt of the day he would return from the wilds of Glen Ghoinean, where herds of red deer roam, and the rabbit trapping laddie, he lived there all alone. December 5th, it came and went, just like any other day. No one to help him celebrate on his 14th birthday. And no gifts to open on Christmas morn, no bells on New Year's Eve, but 2 more months of the lonely life before the boy could leave. The wilds of Glen Ghoinean, where herds of red deer roam, and the rabbit trapping laddie, he lived there all alone. Well, the boy saw out his contract, and 6 months to the day, he bid farewell to Glen Ghoinean, and he set out on his way. He was leaving behind the wild hills, where the herds of red deer roam, and the time had come for the trapper lad to return to his home. From the wilds of Glen Ghoinean, where herds of red deer roam, and the rabbit trapping laddie, he lived there all alone. Thank you. A very quick postscript to that story was he went to the estate office when he got home and went to collect his pay, and the factor looked at him, looked at what he had earned and said it would be obscene to give a boy of your age that much money on your way, and he refused to pay him.
Go for the sympathy vote, he said. Did he ever touch rabbit stew again afterwards?
Oh yes.
Oh yes.